Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is looking at the games that Aries people play. I have to say though, that Aries, as the first sign of the zodiac and being a fire sign, tends not to be a game player in the classic sense of the word. In 1964, a psychiatrist named Eric Berne wrote a best-selling pop psychology book called Games People Play. And that is kind of the template for where I'm going with this series. And starting with the water signs, it was actually quite easy to just speak on that topic with each of the water signs because they're coming from an emotional point of view and they're trying to get their needs met by doing certain things, whether they know it or not. Fire signs are also emotional, but not in the same way, not in a very personal way. And so when they are trying to get their needs met, I feel like it can be either to be reassured that they're really okay, well, not just okay, like amazing, with Aries, the desire to be number one is really great. And so they are associated with those who are very competitive. Aries is a very competitive sign. It's not surprising since it's ruled by Mars. And then you also have the aspect of how the aggression is kind of like discharged, is the best way I can put it. In other words, you will see if you interact with Aries people that they tend to enjoy riling other people up in one way or the other. Now, in the worst case scenario, especially when they're younger, they can start physical fights. And usually we're talking about males, although nowadays, unfortunately, young women are following suit, and you will see fights. I know YouTube has some of them where they're beating each other up, which is insane. But yeah, I mean, even physically, instigating some kind of confrontation. But definitely in terms of being, of argumentativeness, trollish behavior, where they're provoking another person into anger. So are these games? I think so, because these are behaviors that are not really authentic. They may come naturally to some people to engage in them because they're so deeply embedded in the person's psyche that they are doing them automatically, but they're not authentic ways to interact with people on an intimate level. And sometimes that is the goal, is because the person is afraid of getting close to someone. So if you start a fight with someone, because you're afraid of getting close to them, they'll solve the problem because they'll stay the hell away from you, usually, because they'll be so pissed off that you're acting like such an asshat half the time. But anyway, I just want to make it clear that this is dysfunctional behavior of each sign. This is not, I'm in no way saying that all Aries people will do this, although I have seen quite a few that do this. I have met some very positive Aries people, and that's always a breath of fresh air. But I think it's kind of challenging for Aries being ruled by Mars because that's the god of war. So, does a warrior want to sit home and knit, or does it want to fight some battle? Now, if you don't have a battle in your life, if you have a relatively peaceful life, then you might start the war. That's the problem. And I'm afraid that Aries people a lot of times get bored easily. So that may be one of the other reasons why they're doing it, because they just feel like everything is boring when it's peaceful. And that is a misunderstanding of, having a peaceful life, obviously. And I think that as Aries people grow up, they're going to mellow somewhat. But it's also important to note that Aries people need to have challenges in their life. They need to have goals because they're a cardinal sign and they're ruled by Mars. If you think about the symbol for Aries, it's like an arrow. There's like a circle and there's an arrow. So it's like it has to have some kind of a target. If an Aries person, for whatever reason, doesn't have goals, doesn't have also some kind of an outlet for their energy, because there tends to be like a very energetic type of, you know, they tend to be very energetic people, then that can also create a lot of extra energy that they have to dispel in some way. And so a frustrated Aries person is a person who can cause a lot of trouble in his or her personal relationships. So the other so that's something, channeling that energy is very important. So here are some of the things that this person can do. They can start fights, like I said, and this can be merely on the verbal level. But regardless, they can engage in that kind of behavior. They can act in a very aggressive manner. So another thing about Aries, and we could include the moon in Aries with all of this too, is that the imbalanced Aries person can be a downright bully. They can be someone who is very pushy, impatient, aggressive, trying to get other people to do their bidding by using aggression. It will work on some people, unfortunately. Some people, they cave at the nearest at the first sign of any kind of aggression from others, and some people get very offended or combative themselves about that, because they may have a past where they had a parent who was abusing their power and trying to hurry them, push them, and they don't like that. I'm laughing because this doesn't happen all the time, thank God. Not too much these days, but I had a period of time where I had people that were very, when I was doing readings, where they would be like, okay, well, when, they wanted their readings earlier. They wanted me to maybe push them up ahead of other people. I had somebody say something like that. And I was zero tolerance, so I would just like refund their money. And I might have been a little bit reactive because I just know how it feels. I have Taurus rising. I don't like anybody pushing me or being, very aggressive and impatient. That's just one of my Achilles heels, if you will. That's my one of my vulnerable areas. And I'm sure that any of you listening to this who are dealing with someone with a prominent Aries like a sun or moon knows exactly what I'm talking about. So that impatience is actually a manipulation too, because they're trying to get what they want. Aries is connected to babies because it's the first sign. It just works its way up through the human developmental stages. So suffice it to say, an undeveloped Aries is very infantile. and they will have their little grand mal, or I shouldn't say little, their grand mal hissy fits, where they will just like lose it. They will recover very quickly. They don't hold grudges in that sense, unless maybe they have the moon in Scorpio, I suppose. But it's one of those things that when somebody, even like a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, when they throw a tantrum, it's not just that they're upset. That is a manipulative ploy, and they're trying to get what they want. Now, a 2-year-old is different because they're actually 2 years old. I almost said literally, but I'm trying not to say that word because it's one of my pet peeves. But they're actually 2 years old. So they have the right to be a 2-year-old when they're actually two. When a person is 22 or 42 or 62, it's not so pretty, right? Doing the same thing. But if you notice, like if you see a 2-year-old and they're not getting what they want, what happens to the adult caretaker? Some will feel guilty and they will cave. So when I talk about how to deal with these different signs that are acting, they're being difficult, or they're being conniving, or both, what I'm saying is that your response is everything. How do you respond to manipulation? Do you even know that it's manipulation? That's a very important point to consider, is that some people do not understand that they are being manipulated. So they just, we all may have this programming inside of ourselves where we just respond to other people in a very programmed way, or like an automatic way. So just like a person who's, engaging in bad behavior is automatic in their negative behavior, we can be automatic in our we could call it negative responses, but it's like unhelpful responses. So the more that you are living an intentional life, the more conscious you will get about your own responses. You will naturally see when somebody acts a certain way, how do you react to their actions, reactions. And sometimes there is actual fear. And this can be if you had a parent who was abusive to you, the petty tyrant that Dr. Wayne Dyer, the late Wayne Dyer, used to talk about. That kind of a manipulation can only work if you're still stuck in that mode of being the scared child. If you are committed to becoming your own person, and you're not going to allow someone to intimidate you, then you start behaving in a different way. So when I talk about learning to deal, what I would say is, I've said this for every video, and I think that this is the number one step that I would personally do. I can't give people advice because you know what? Some people you don't even want to mess with because they have so many problems that you might just want to steer clear from them altogether. Some people are people that you can see that they have some potential, maybe. I don't know, because sometimes it's like they might have potential, but you don't want to work so hard at that type of relationship. I can totally see that, The number one thing I always say is being authentic and expressing exactly how you feel about how they're acting and how it impacts you. So, a sentence like, when you get angry at the drop of a hat because you're not getting your way, I know that you're trying to intimidate me. You're trying to break me down so that I do that. Maybe you would disagree with that, but that's how I see it. And I'm refusing to cooperate under those circumstances because that, intimidation is never an acceptable way of getting your needs met. And, when people say those things, though, they have to back it up. A lot of times it seems like people have empty words and they're not really going to do much about it afterwards. So, what do they expect? Is that going to solve the problem? I don't think so. So first you have to decide whether or not that person is even salvageable in terms of your relationship with them, because they may have done so much that you're just done. But if you feel like it's just that they are out of control emotionally, or emotionally immature, and that they have potential, that they're really good people, but they just have this little side to themselves that isn't so pleasant, then perhaps letting them know will put them on high alert. I don't know. I mean, I think that in some cases people have to get some kind of behavioral modification because there's a trigger that is causing them sometimes to act like that as well. They get easily frustrated, and they just want what they want when they want it. And like I said, I don't think I don't think it's always like a game per se. It's more of a negative behavioral pattern. But it acts like a game because it's not coming from an authentic place. Maybe their emotions are, but the way they choose to express their emotions are really to maximize the potential of getting what they want. But they're not thinking whether they should be getting what they want. They just assume that that's what should happen. If you're dealing with someone who is competitive, I mean, it's like an ego that has gotten out of control. And this can manifest in bragging, or like if you're trying to tell them something good that happened to you, then they have to either say something that's better that happened to them, or to try to diminish your success in some way. These kinds of things, I was going to say this reminds me of Leo, when Leo is behaving badly too. But it can be really frustrating, or, aggravating to be in a relationship with someone who you think that you basically have a lot of common ground, or maybe you have fun together, and yet when you're trying to share your successes, your wins, they never seem happy about it. They do something, either they're trying to regain the spotlight, or trying to make your success seem not as good as you're making it out to be. And that's that competitive, toxic competition. You know what I mean? The thing about Aries is they usually are so transparent. If you had a sign like Scorpio, that would be a different story, because they're very good at being quite subtle. It's very dangerous. But Aries is like a child, and they tend to kind of give away all of their so-called hidden strategies. Um, and in personal, like partnerships, like if you're in a marriage, for instance, or the equivalent, if one person is experiencing more professional success than the other, that could create problems in the relationship too. What I meant to say is, if the Aries person is the one who isn't experiencing the success, because Aries is the first sign, they want to be number one. And when they're not number one, and there's somebody there who is doing better than them in some way, but we're talking about who lives under the same roof, that could get quite uncomfortable for the other party, but also for the Aries person, because they it could drive them crazy and make them act in very obnoxious ways. And so even being emotionally abusive, I could see in some cases because the person wants to knock, the Aries person wants to knock the other person down to size. So they may imply that, that person's success is somehow bogus. They really didn't deserve it. And that's when it can get very destructive for the other person. So you don't want to be that individual who gets treated like they've done something wrong just by succeeding. And maybe in some cases, the other party feels guilty that they are doing so well when their partner is struggling and feeling bad about themselves. But that would be the wrong way of looking at it. It's not anyone else's responsibility to, boost somebody's self-esteem. And certainly nobody has to be the verbal punching bag for somebody who has, doesn't feel good about themselves, doesn't feel confident. While it's understandable that your self-esteem might lower when you don't feel successful, it doesn't give anyone the right to take that out on someone else. So I'm going to leave it there. I hope that this resonated. And if you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.